it's time to invite our hosts and the organizers of the event. That's Harry Atwater back again, as well as Lambertus Hesselink from Stanford and David Welch from For Good Ventures for some closing discussion before we end the day.
Yeah, well, so we've had a remarkable tour, beginning with remarks this morning from Arun Majumdar, framing many issues associated with this climate-driven energy transition. And we've seen representatives and speakers from virtually every stakeholder sector involved in this challenge. And there has been, I think, some very interesting insights that are going to contribute to helping us develop new pathways for solutions, which is the purpose of this conference, aiming to rewire the Sankey diagram. I'll turn it over to Bert to make his observations as well.
Yeah, thank you, Harry. Yeah, I have to remember what my thinking was a couple of years ago when the pandemic started. There was Operation Warp Speed, and the US government put in $8 or $10 billion. And within about a period of 3 weeks, the vaccine was actually developed, and we then had to test it for the rest of the year. And I was telling my friends, next year, summer, we will be all done because everybody is going to have a vaccine and there will be no more issues. And of course, the reality turned out to be very, very different. So when I listened to all these presentations, maybe there's a little bit of a conservative streak in me, but or maybe it is a reality. I think the same thing that happens with respect to the uses of vaccines is going to happen in the area of energy change. I think there's a very significant fraction of the population that might ask themselves the question, do I really want to do this? And under what price and what conditions will I do it? So I think one of the hopeful outcomes of this meeting would be to try to find out what is really the probability that a number of these scenarios that at least on paper look like they might get to 100% really will get there. And that brings me to the next observation, which is that we've had 14 years of reducing global warming gases in the United States at the rate of 1% per year, including California. California did not better, but California grew its economy on average by 3%, so they did roughly 4%. But the problem is that for the rest of the country, this is a different story. California, you don't need 5 or 6 months of winter time and what you need in Maine, where you essentially have no solar power and you might have wind. There's also, even in California, significant resistance to building a wind farm in my backyard or a solar farm so I can see it. So my hope is that we will actually in the workshop come to some discussion about what is the likelihood that some of these somewhat optimistic scenarios would actually read us, and how do we actually go from where we are right now to kind of increase all of a sudden, meaning today, by 1% to 4%, and knowing that the next couple of years, global warming gases are increasing. So Kissinger said he was only interested in real politics, meaning find a solution that all parties can actually come in an agreement to. And I think in this case, we need to find some real politics solution to the energy problem and try to find some way of simplifying. And that's maybe a last comment, and I'll give it over to David. But when I listen to this, of course, we have all, studied this for a long time, and we have PhDs. But the story that was told today by these different, very well-known and articulate presentations is way too complicated for the general public to understand. There is no simple one half page that the venture capitalists normally want to get the elevator pitch as to how we're actually going to get there. This is so incredibly complicated. We've got to find some simpler way to essentially disseminate this message. And so I hope that we can do that at the remainder of the meeting. David?
Sure, I'll add in a few comments here as well. First, tremendous thanks to Caltech and to the speakers. I was enthralled from the first moment of the conference to listening to all the various perspectives. I'm going to have to replay it on about 0.7 speed to hear all the words and absorb all the information. And tremendous thanks to everyone. I am in between the two places. Many of the pieces exist. The question is, do the pieces exist in the time frame that we need? And so I'm going to play the role of myopic focus at 2030, not to dissuade ourselves from investing for 2050 as well, but for 2030. What do we have to do to achieve our targets? Technologically, I do believe a lot of that understanding, architectural understanding is there. The ability to implement at scale is where we will run into our biggest problems in that. And that comes in the form of economic transformations of markets. It comes into the form of taking a concept and actually scaling it to giga scale. I really enjoyed enjoyed all the talks, but the talk from one of our earlier speakers from Stanford that talked about you have to talk about giga scale on everything. And so there are real physical products that need to be made, and then there are control systems that need to be advanced. So we can probably scale control systems relatively quickly. Real deployment of real physical hardware and deployment of infrastructure, that's harder. It takes time. And there it takes higher, more capitally intensive dollars to get to that. And so I am encouraged by the passion and the energy and the insight of the puzzle pieces. I just it's the challenge of can society put together the pieces together in time to meet our 2030 goals or earlier and do that. And that's what I think the purpose of the workshop is to assess the what are the barriers to adopting these technologies quickly. And there are definitely some clear low-hanging fruits that were identified that we should be able to move forward on. But our challenge is we'll be able to widely adopt across the nation and across the political sector to be able to realize some of the outcomes. So.
Okay, so we have no lack of complexity, no lack of challenge, lots of diversity, and we have another day tomorrow. So I want to remind everybody that starting at 9 o'clock Pacific time, we're going to kick off day 2, and we're going to hear from the Vice President for Sustainability and Chief Sustainability Officer from General Motors, Kristen Seaman, Pedro Pizarro, who's CEO of Edison International, Sally Benson, who's Deputy Director for Energy in the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, Arti Prabhakar, founder of Actuate and former DARPA Director, and Andrew Holland from the Fusion Energy Association. So we're going to hear some other viewpoints, again, from a diversity of sectors, industry, government, and nonprofit sector. So we'll look forward to seeing everyone engaged tomorrow as we continue our journey with CE10.